Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. Today, my guest is Corey Gray, and Corey is a coordinator of scholar supports, and he works in East Point, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. Welcome, Corey. We're so excited to have you here. Just good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm so excited to have this conversation and just looking forward to what I'm going to learn from you as well as what I can share with your community.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do and what your role is where you work.
Yes, so like you said, I am a coordinator of scholar supports, which seems like a really weird long title, but essentially what that means is I am a special education teacher here in East Point, which is a subset of Atlanta, Georgia, and I work in the charter school sector. So many of us who may be familiar with charter schools, we know that you can have a title, but you do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that are under my bucket is I oversee our remedial education program, or as we call it, REP. So I oversee what that looks like at the middle school level. And I also serve as the gifted educator for our middle academy or our middle school scholars. So I oversee that gifted instruction. And those are my two big buckets, but then there are some other things that I'm doing as well. But I mostly oversee REP, teach gifted, as well as provide special education minutes to some of our fifth and sixth grade scholars as well.
So you do you do any of the case management, or is that someone else is doing that and you I'm sure you attend a lot of IEPs, but that is that a
Yes, so
part of your role or no?
to an extent. So I attend every single IEP meeting that we have in middle school because
Yeah.
I mostly am the note taker. So in those meetings, I'm taking all the notes, I'm intaking all the conversations. And then I work with our scholar supports department in middle academy to finalize the IEPs, finalize any goals that were set in that meeting. And very much kind of, like I said, serve as a note taker, but also as an organizer to make sure that everything is set. And then on top of that, when it comes to my students that do have the or do receive special education services, I also help with the case and management as far as collect work samples, provide those interventions to those scholars to make sure that every scholar who has an IEP that they're meeting their goals that we set, and every scholar has access to the equitable education within special education, within general education as well.
Which is what IDA is all about, right?
Yes,
Individualized. Yes.
yes,
Yes,
all the
individualized.
things.
Yes, all the things. Okay, well, great. So, and when we talked before, you had said to me that you had done some leadership prior to taking this position. Can you give us a little bit of that background and what that was like for you?
Of course. So prior to this role, I was essentially a middle school math instructional coach. So the title was department head, but what I really did was I oversaw all things middle school math at that level. And I served as one an instructional coach where I was coaching teachers, I was doing classroom observations, and all things that you would kind of see an instructional coach do. But then I also oversaw our logistical aspect. So I managed the department, but I also oversaw our budget because every department at that school had their own budget. So I was the one who was making purchases. I was coding the budget. I was the decision maker in regards to where our funds went, how we want to use our funds, as well as how to maximize those funds as well. So a lot of my role in that realm, and I was in the independent school sector, so there's a little bit more freedom that we had outside of the charter school, the public school sector, where your funds are coming from the state. Our funds were more so coming from the stakeholders that were within the school, with students paying tuition, different things like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of use those funds and think about how we wanted to maximize the budget, like I said earlier. But that was very much what I was doing before this role. And then, I loved it. It was a amazing school philosophy, amazing school model. But I knew that I wanted to really get back in the classroom and really work with scholars who I saw in the various experiences that I've had that were just struggling and were not being supported in the general education setting. So that's why I wanted to take a step back and really work in the special education scene because those kids need as much attention as every child. And I wanted to be the one to provide not just that attention, but also that exceptional instruction.
And how long do you see yourself in this role?
Interesting. So I'm in this role this year, and I've been in this role since August or September or so. And next year, I'm actually going back to be an elementary school teacher in the same school setting, just going back to really learn some more structures and some more things regarding just how our school runs and the different philosophies here. But I do know that my ultimate goal is to one, get back into leadership, oversee special education services or different things like that at a school level. But also I do have aspirations of opening up my own charter school in the future and wanting the school that I designed to be one for students who have exceptionalities and to give them an accelerated learning environment that meets their needs but also pushes them. So I know we talked a little bit about what I'm doing on the school level, but I'm also in the final stages of working on my doctoral degree, and my doctoral degree focuses on educational psychology, but with a gifted and creative educational lens. So I'm literally finalizing my dissertation right now, about to send it off to my committee to defend that. But a lot of the things that I've
Wow.
learned both in that program and in this experience now, I believe will prepare me to open up my own school and to ensure that no matter where your scholar is from, no matter their zip code or their socioeconomic status, no matter where, whatever demographic values or variables that they kind of come in with, that we're able to meet that individual need and teach to the student rather than teaching to a test or teaching to a number or whatnot. Really teach the individual and unique needs of the student.
Yeah. Well, and I love this. I love your passion because I see somebody who's going to continue to grow as a leader in the educational space. I see you as somebody who is working right now. You gotta start and understand what you're doing, what the people that you're asking to do the work are doing. And so you're getting that experience now so that when you move into a leadership role in the future or go back to a leadership role, that you have that boots on the ground experience. Would you say that's true?
Very much true. Very much true. Because I am currently wrapping up my 6 year teaching, but when I look at the different experiences that I've had, I was an elementary school teacher teaching second and third grade. I was a mentor teacher where I had a student teacher under me that I was overseeing their practicum experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was the gifted mentor teacher of my school where I was coaching teachers at the elementary level on how to teach gifted scholars. Then I moved into the middle school department head role. Then I was an adjunct professor at Georgia State University, where I've taught a graduate course there last summer. So I've had so many different positions and so many different experiences, and like, okay, at what point am I going to get settled? But I do definitely agree and foresee that when that time comes, when I'm running my own school and I have a network of schools, which is the vision, that I can say to no matter which teacher I'm talking about, I've been in this seat, I've sat here, I've done this role, I know what's
Mm-hmm.
expected, and we demand excellence, we demand equity, we demand all those things, but at the core of it, we demand that our teachers and our staff is producing love and that our kids are really
Yeah.
experiencing joy in learning. And I'm grateful that I've had so many experiences so that I can truly impart that upon my future staff.
Awesome. That's really great. One of the things we do at Lighthouse is take care of our therapists. Our mission is always to be a therapy company run by therapists. I'm a speech therapist, as you know, for
Mhm.
therapists for the betterment of students. That's it. You wanna empower your people so that they can empower the students because at the end of the day, that's why we're here. Education, educating the
Yes.
future, educating our next generation. So I think that's really, really cool. So, what would you think right now? What would you say in education or what you're seeing in education is your biggest challenge that students are facing in 2025 with AI and all of the stuff that's coming along and just in general, what would you say is that you're seeing as their biggest challenge?
Great question. What I'm noticing as the biggest challenge that our scholars have in 2025, which is crazy to think about, but
I know,
what I'm noticing,
right?
what I'm noticing is just the ability to think creatively and critically and merge the two together. One of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite professors is, well, he's passed now, but the father of creativity, we know him as Dr. E. Paul Torrance. And he, in a lot of his works, talked about that we need to teach students how to think and not what to think about. And the way that we go about teaching our scholars how to think is giving them opportunities that really merge and pull out their creativity and shows them one how creative they are, but two that creativity can be nurtured. Because I feel like a lot of teachers and a lot of staff members may not believe that creativity can be taught, but it can be taught. And it can be taught in a
Mm-hmm.
plethora of ways. And once you tap into that creative side or that creative thinking, you can solve any problem. I do think that it's one thing to think creatively, and it's another thing to think critically. But we can also think, I don't know the term, but creatively critical or critically
Yeah.
creative, right? You can
Yeah.
think in both veins because when you really, at the crux of teaching for creativity, is truly teaching our scholars how to problem solve. And problem solving is knowing what to do when I don't know what to do. Right? It's like, what
Right.
steps will I take in this situation to figure out, okay, well, what's my metacognition saying? What's the process that I'm going to follow? What steps am I going to take based on prior research and the different aspects? So and I think that at times that critical part can be difficult, like you said, in this AI generation. I remember when I was growing up, and I am young, so I don't want to age myself. But when I was young, I remember that we didn't have, I couldn't just turn on my computer and play a game, or I couldn't turn on a video game. We had to play board games. I remember vividly playing checkers and Monopoly and these different board games that required you to think and make
Right.
decisions and that really push you to be socially aware and self-aware and tap into all those social emotional skills that I think we're
Mhm.
lacking when we just put a kid on a computer and say, get on this game or get on this platform.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what
Right.
you're
So,
talking about really is apologetics, really,
mm,
not just critical thinking, but making critical choices and reasoning through why you're making those choices. And that's really great because kids need that. Leaders need that, right? I mean, you're
yeah.
already thinking about what's it going to be like when I open a school or when I have a series of schools, right? What kinds of things am I going to need to do? And you have to have that solid base in order to do what you need to do. So one of the things that you're talking about, I think there's a really amazing book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And in that book, he specifically talks about outliers are people that have done things, but they become an expert because you have to have at least 10,000 hours of doing something to become an expert. It's interesting. When I was reading that book when I was starting Lighthouse Therapy, and I did the math for teletherapy. We do online therapy, and I've done online therapy now for 11 years or whatever it is, 14 years. But I had 10,000 hours, and it was like, that piece is like, wow, you're putting in your 10,000 hours right now so that you can
Mhm.
do what you need to do and have the knowledge and the base and, to be able to do that and do it well. So that's super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think too, it's like it's 10,000 hours of intentional work.
Yes.
Not just you
Hmm.
just mulling around and trying to figure it out, but it's truly you really having an intention and a why behind it. Because one of my favorite quotes by Pastor Darius Daniels is, "If your why does not make you cry, the price will always be too high." So if
Ah,
the why
very
doesn't really,
nice.
yeah, if your why doesn't really pull at your heart and say like, because I think that we think teaching is hard work, but I say it's heart work. Your heart has to be in this work in order to really make the impact that you desire. So if the why doesn't really pull at me and make me get in a place where I see my students' future, where I don't think that I'm seeing the 11-year-old right now, but I'm thinking about the 21-year-old that's going to be out solving problems in the world. If I can't get to my why, then it's hard, then the price that I pay of me coming to work every day and the things that we deal with on the day to day will always be too high. So,
Yeah.
yes, definitely to your point about the 10,000 hours, I definitely
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I'll have to write that down and steal it from you later,
Of course, of
because
course.
that's amazing. Yeah, you have to have. I think educators, I think all of us come into it with a passion for it, because we have a servant heart. We want to serve the kids, right? We want to do something that is helpful, and if you can hold on to that, and so when you talk about, because you said you're young, but you've got experience. What would you say to those that are considering getting into education? What kind of advice would you give somebody who's just, maybe just graduating from high school in college or in college, but don't know what they want to do and they're considering education? What would you say to them?
It depends on who I'm talking about, but I think the first thing I will always say is, and this is, and I don't know the platform, so if I need to revamp what I'm saying, please let me know. But I would say seek the Lord because
Oh
when
no,
I
yeah, don't worry about that.
okay,
We are a faith-based business. Faith is, and we didn't talk about this, but thank you for doing that. I appreciate the boldness, because I am also very bold when it comes to my faith. And faith is our center core value at Lighthouse, and everything else. My daughter made this graphic, and she put faith as the big one in the middle, and then respect and growth and guidance and honesty are around it, because faith is the
mhm,
center of what we do. So I totally agree with you 1000%. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
am a Christian. I am, and I don't,
Yes.
and when I don't, and I boldly say that because it it's important that people, and I won't ever apologize for my faith. So go right ahead.
Okay, okay. So I would definitely say seek the Lord because when I was in college, I had dreams of being the first Black governor of Georgia. That I have my degree in political science. I was on my way to Harvard Law School, was going to practice family and divorce law, was going to do that for about 7 years and then work my way back into government. I had a whole plan. And the Lord came and radically shifted everything. It was like, nope, you need to be a teacher. And when that came to me and I really walked in that calling and in that purpose, that's when I really felt like the things that where hard became easy, that I knew that I was in my purpose because at the end of the day, he's the author and the finisher of our faith. So
Right.
I need to really tap into that. So that's what I would tell honestly everyone that hey, seek your purpose and make sure and many times your purpose aligns to your passions, but sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I went into political science, I was a music education major where I wanted to be a high school band director, but that wasn't my calling. My calling was to be in the elementary school classroom as a general education teacher. So really tapping into your passion, tapping into your purpose, but also what I would say to our emerging educators is have your why. So know why you want to teach, know who you want to teach, and know why you want to teach them as well. But also I know when I'm hiring, and because that was another part of being a department head, was I was over the hiring process, like interviewing math teachers who came in. And I always had three buckets that I was looking for when I was hiring, and two buckets that I looked for when I was managing people. So when you're hiring, I always looked for people who were critically conscious about content. Like you're critical, you can be a critical thinker. You're culturally responsive, which means if I put any child in your classroom, you can respond to their culture, no matter who they are, no matter where
Yeah.
they come
Yeah.
from. Can you respond to to this child? And three, are you creative? Are you
Mm-hmm.
creative in your teaching? And do you one believe that you are creative? Can you teach these scholars in ways that are more than just giving them a worksheet and producing a lecture? But can you actually creatively teach your content? So those are the three things that I would say to our emerging educators: being critically conscious, being culturally responsive, and being creative. Like figuring out how you can kind of embody those things. But then again, when you're being managed, so even when you get that job, my one of my favorite principals, I'll drop his name. His name is David White. He was the APS Principal of the Year about 2 years ago in Atlanta. He's an amazing principal. I talk about him all the time. But one thing he taught me was when you're having teachers, you want them to be competent about content and compassionate about children. And
Yes.
I can teach you to be competent. Like let's say that the competent part is not really there as much. Like you need to work on this grade level or this certain content, we can get there. I can help you with subject matter, but I don't know if I really can put love in your heart. I don't know if I
Mm-hmm.
truly can help you love kids because we are in a world where some teachers get in the profession because it pays well to them. And that
Mm-hmm.
is not the best motivator to jump into this profession because you'll find out that the schools that pay the most will require the most as well.
Right.
So, so I would say, I said a lot there, but definitely the three buckets as far as culturally responsive, critical consciousness, and creativity, but also knowing your content and loving kids.
Right.
So, do you love
Yeah.
kids? And some people are like, I love the littles, but I don't. The high school is too much, or vice versa. Just picking
Yeah.
your bucket and just knowing your why.
Yeah, and you don't have to be good at every single subject, and you don't have to be good at every single age level. You find where your passion is. And I've always said, if you love what you're doing, it's not work. It becomes it's not. I absolutely I'm super excited about this podcast. I'm super excited about what Lighthouse is doing because it is not work for me. It is definitely God ordained. He asked me to start my own company, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that, but I did. I did it, and He has blessed it immensely, and I'm grateful. And the people that He's put around me, oh my goodness! And now I get to talk to people who are leaders and people that are going to be doing amazing things in education, and excited about the next generation, and just navigating it. And I think that I see that in you, Corey, and I'm on fire for you because I know you're going to do some great things, and that's part of the reason why I wanted you on here is because you have that passion, and you don't. It's not something you see in everybody, and it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. So, one last question. And I ask this question to most people on my podcast. And I say miraculous because I am faith based. I don't have a magic wand. I know there's no magic wand out there. So I say, if you could miraculously solve one challenge in schools, what would you want to solve?
I love that question. If I could
I do too.
miraculously solve one thing in schools, I would replace the notion of standardized testing and replace it with something that is more aligned to individualized showcasing of knowledge. So rather than every child taking the same test and kids worrying or wondering, am I going to progress to the next level? And teachers in this merit pay system where my pay is attached to my data, and if
Yeah.
my kids don't do well, I would do away with all of that and just say, instead of us teaching to a test, let's teach to the child. Who is
Yeah.
the child in front of me? What is their identity? What is their culture? What is their passion? What is their purpose? And how are we pushing and catapulting them to purpose? Because we don't want to wait for our scholars to get into college and be exposed to all these different forces and these different things that they were not exposed to at a younger age and lose their way, because that happens to a lot of our scholars. They
Yeah.
grow up in these structured environments, then they get on, and at times they might lose, like I said, they might lose their way. But I feel as though if we really tap into the child, cultivate their identity, cultivate their intelligence and all the different things, but really let their self-identity rise, they'll go forth and change the world before they leave our classroom.
Right. Right.
So that's what I
Absolutely.
would do.
I
Do
love
away
that.
with the test. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's so good. That is so good. Someone, we're leaders a lot right now are talking about learning loss from the pandemic, and I'm like, you know, I understand that they lost the education the that you wanted as a school for them to learn, but they didn't stop learning. Kids never stop learning. They just learned something different. And it's just interesting to, you know, we depend too much on tests. And, I know there's people out there that do a really good job in whatever, but I don't want to offend a bunch of people, but it's tough. It's really tough. And we want what's best for our kids and for the students that we work with, because your kids are lucky to have you. The students in your classroom are lucky to have you as their teacher, and that's
Thank
because
you.
the passion's there. It's amazing. Okay, well, Corey, thank you so much for your time. And this was a great conversation. I wish we had another half an hour. We could probably talk for another
Yes.
hour. If come up with more questions, we wouldn't stop. But I do have to stop. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you? What is the best way to get a hold of you?
Great question. Because I'm not really on social media, but I am on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect with me, I am on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Corey Gray. And I do have a tutoring business, and a consulting firm as well. So that's called Geniusology. So I'm going to spell it GeniusOlogy.org. That's our company website. So if anyone wants to connect with me that way, you definitely can. But I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. My email is my first name, so Corey, period, Gray at UGA.edu. I don't know how long it's going to be that because I'm graduating soon. Glory to God.
Oh,
But you can
goodness.
connect with me.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yes, they can connect with me that way. But like I said, LinkedIn or my website, I'm always accessible and love answering questions and connecting with teachers and those who care about kids. This is my passion and my ministry. So I definitely love
Yeah.
talking to people about this.
All right. Well, that's good. That is great information. And thank you so much once again for joining us on Brighter Together, because you are going to make the world brighter, and we can do
Thank
that
you.
together.
Thank you. I've had an awesome time. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.